So first off, we're recording this, of course, and for everybody listening and that will be speaking, we're recording this and we will be distributing this on the website, so missionmatters.com, as well as the YouTube channel Mission Matters Business. So I expect to see more on there, and it'll be posted on LinkedIn as well, and everyone will be tagged, just as a side note. And I think we also send out an email to all of the panelists as well with all the content. So let's just dive in. For those of you that are unaware or new to the Mission Matters platform, we're a platform that's all about bringing on entrepreneurs, executives, and experts and having them share their story, their mission, why they do what they do, how they're doing it. We publish authors through our co-author, or I should say our best-selling co-author book series, as well as distribute our shows through the Mission Matters Podcast Network. For context, and you can find more information on missionmatters.com. We host these events every Thursday at 4 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So feel free to follow, and we will continue hosting events for everybody to get together, collaborate, share ideas, and grow together. So the format for this, especially for some of the panelists, just for context, Tom, Victor, Adam, we've all worked together and been on. You've all been on the show, and I've interviewed and worked with many of you closely. That being said, think of this way more as a roundtable chat. We all dive in. Anybody can ask questions. This is not an interview. I'm not going to ask all the questions. So Victor, Tom, Adam, all of you have plenty of experience. So make sure to get involved. I'd like to hear your questions. And this really is, again, more of a roundtable and a way for all of us to learn from each other. So today's topic, 5 key lessons to know before a business launch. A lot of different individuals on here have different experiences when it comes to business and launching a business. Victor, I know we've gone into your background more than once. I'd love to hear what you'd like to share on this, but I won't put you on the hot seat. I'm going to leave it kind of open if anybody like to kick it off. Like, what's a lesson that someone learned when they were maybe early on in business that they wish they would have known now, with obviously, or when they started out, I should say, with hindsight being 2020, right?
Right.
Who wants to kick it off?
Well, since you mentioned my name, so this is Victor. I am the CEO of Fine Designs, the co-founder of this amazing company. And as Adam mentioned, my beginning was especially very, very difficult. And because of that, you truly remember almost like yesterday. So when I saw this topic, 5 key lessons to know before the business launch, I'm not sure whether how well I was educated before that. One thing I knew for sure, I just was too excited and too eager to start. So, and I definitely knew why I want to do this. I want to do this business. So those three things, I think it's alone already like the items that I would emphasize that you should have. But as I think this over, one of the key lessons that I would tell that throughout the years and looking other companies why some of them succeed and other ones fail, I want to point out just to one lesson, one key lesson, which is the long-term strategy, because there was obviously short-term strategy and there is a long-term strategy. With that, you have right expectations. You should have the right expectations. So that would be the lessons, is to have the right expectation, because especially at the each of us, we come with expectations, and if your expectation just fall short of what is the reality, you just going to suffer and you will experience pain, and possibly of that you will retrieve. Because of that, you will have extra pressure, and therefore you would make wrong decisions. And I see that a lot. For example, I remember the time when me and my wife, we just moved in to this beautiful luxury house that was actually back in 2006, right before the crash. Was a very expensive house right on the mountains, and I want to get bids from different companies who's going to do the windows, blinds, and drapes, because it's a lot of money to spend for such a big house. And one of the companies won the bid because, yeah, for the fact that the price was lower, but they also guaranteed the quality will be there. So when their crew arrived, and usually when people, any vendors, they send people to the house, they go to greet the customer, they'll walk through the process, they show them the product, whether this is the right product, just to confirm everything, if this is everything what was expected, and then they go through the process, and at the end you do the walkthrough with the customer. That's what expected. But at this time, the crew arrived. They did not even greet us. They went straight to work. And I thought, well, I don't care as long as they do a quality job. So as soon as they finish, I didn't even realize that they are gone. Nobody's in the house. So then I just have to go and do the follow up myself. And as I unfortunately I found one mistake, another mistake. So I called this guy who is happened to be the owner, and I want to report those issues. As I report those issues, I could sense he's getting angry with me. And it's kind of like, not like, oh yeah, no problem, we will fix it. It's like, well, I'm not sure when we can do it. I look in my calendar, but I think we can do it is in like 1 to 2 days. So reluctantly, he's sending the crew again. As the crew comes, now you expect they learned the lesson, so they will make sure that you both walk through before they finish. Same deal. Those two people that came, they just gone as soon as they finish wherever they finish. And as I do the follow up again, I could see one of the mistakes still there. So it's not like I have fun calling this guy, but I have no other option, because my wife is looking now. You're the one who hired this company, so I call it this guy, and this guy, he's just like boom. He says this job from the beginning, it's like we're not making money. I sent a crew and I gave him this specific time. They went over, so that means it's cut his profit. And then when you demand, when I send the crew second time, that's already taken from my profit. He's telling me all of those details, kind of like I have to feel guilty about. So the long story short, he basically come down to the site himself if he fix it. But what I want to say, based on this story, what the lesson that I learned is the people with mind like this, they go for the short term. So they build a business, they have this strategy, wherever vision they have, but the expectation is to get rewarded within short term. So if I do this job and he calculates, or he or she calculates the amount of the investment of the time and the equipment and everything that the money they invest in, and now I have to have this reward. How much money am I making per hour? How much money am I making per week, or wherever? And then as they realize, well, it's probably less than I would make being as a UPS driver. They feel discouraged. They feel kind of like guilty about why I even went on this journey. They feel bad about themselves. They're not satisfied, and that anger obviously shows on their employees and on their customers and so on. And if you think about, if that was a launch strategy, if they would show their best attitude, even when you complain, even if you when you call them and they say, well sir, there is no problem, even if I have to, I'll do it myself. But yes, what we promise, we deliver, stuff like that. And they do, and they care for you, kind of like you're the only customer in the whole world. Obviously, the word will spray out, and then you can expect that from one crew, within 2 years, they go to 10 crews, and then they go to 100 crews. So yes, the profit could be not as much as you expected, but if you have 100 crews, even if you multiply that by $500 from each job, you're already making a lot of profit. But that's only if you build the foundation in you, if you invest enough in your vision, you invest on the foundation. And for me, even though I was not well educated, I was still only like 22 years old, and I didn't spend much time on educating, reading a lot of books. But that to me was clear. I have to invest in foundation, and I don't care whether I'm making profit. I don't care whether I can afford this or that. I didn't care about none of that. I could well just use any inexpensive car, and I don't have to go to the restaurants. That it wasn't even in my mind. My focus was build the brand. Build the brand so people truly know who we are, not by one or two experiences, but the brand I'm talking about, like the kindness, the quality. This is who we are. It's who we are inside out. And it takes time to build that, to invest that. And then 10 years, even looking in my business, like sometimes I'm thinking it's a magic. How that even happen? That over this few years, over 10 years, we grew from one office to satellite offices all over the United States, and then Europe, and then New Zealand, and then Australia. How that happened? But in reality, it happened is when you build the foundation, and is the biggest the foundation, then you can how big the foundation. That's how much you can grow. I forget that I'm on a round table.
I love
I don't
that.
want.
I love that, Victor. That's awesome. That's awesome. Where are you from originally, Victor?
I'm originally from Ukraine, by the
From
way.
Ukraine. That's
Yes.
that's awesome. Hope your family's okay.
Yeah, my family is all fine. I do have some relatives, but not like my. Yeah, those are all here, but I do have some friends. And obviously it still doesn't matter whether even this is relatives, but what happened there is very painful.
It is. Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Well, I'd love to add on to what Victor just said. My name is Adam Nager. I'm a serial entrepreneur in healthcare based in Orlando, Florida, with satellite offices here throughout the United States as well as overseas in the Philippines mainly. And, for me, Adam, when you ask that question about 5 key lessons, it's much like what Victor said, investing into the foundation and identifying, what the business is, what the venture is, why you're getting into the business, educating yourself on that business before getting into it. My ex-wife and I were looking at starting a business, and we were thinking about starting a doggy daycare. And so somebody well wiser than I was told me, go volunteer your time at the local humane society and go volunteer your time at some other doggy daycares before, committing yourself and spending a couple $100,000 on starting a doggy daycare. And we did that. We found out that, what, that business wasn't what we wanted to do. We didn't want to be scooping poop every day, and we didn't want to be watching dogs on holidays and summer vacations and all of that kind of stuff. And so, beyond that, I'll say that for me personally, one of the biggest lessons as I've opened up 8 companies today is making sure that I have passion for whatever business I'm starting, because that passion will get you through times of difficulty, whether it's a recession or losing a large client or having employee issues or not having employee issues. That passion will get you through it, and that passion will also come out in your business, in your pitching of your services. Obviously, if you're in business, you're selling something, either yourself or service or product, and that passion will come out. And if you don't have that passion, people will typically see right through you from that standpoint. So for me, one of the biggest lessons is just making sure whatever I do when I'm starting to launch a business, number one, I have a good foundation. I know what the business is. I like the business. I don't like the idea of the business, but I like the business, and that I've got passion around it, or I could build passion around it. Another thing that I'll share real quick is that, for me, I see a lot of entrepreneurs. I work with entrepreneurs and I coach entrepreneurs on how to start their own business in healthcare, as I've done. And I see a lot of people getting started without any goals in mind. And you've got to have a passion, and then you've got to have goals, and they've got to be fairly realistic goals with a little bit of a stretch naturally. But you've got to have strong goals, and you've got to, more importantly than even the goal, you got to have a plan of how to get to that goal in mind. and documented. And so as I've built other businesses and everything, I tell the entrepreneurs that I work with, create a daily journal, and in the front page of it, write down what your goal is and write down what your plan is of obtaining it. And now every day, do something in your business and make sure you document it every day. So that's part of the plan, because a goal without a plan, is someone very, very much more intelligent than I am said, is just a dream. A goal without a plan is just a dream. So what are your expectations, and then what are you willing to do to get there, is kind of really a lesson that I've learned the hard way, and now I implement it, and it makes it a whole lot easier for me as I build my businesses. And again, investing in yourself, like Victor was alluding to, investing, realizing that it's not the short-term gain but the long-term. And again, like I mentioned before, that passion should get you through it. So I don't know if that helps anybody listening in, but it's definitely helped me.
It's awesome, Adam. And, as I'm listening to this and just thinking about just the journey of an entrepreneur, especially when you're getting started, like you don't necessarily, you don't know what you don't know. So we all start from different standpoints, different backgrounds, obviously, and different ideas and goals, as we're mentioning. And the idea that you don't know what you don't know, like how is everybody on the line how have you dealt with that issue? Like not knowing what you don't know, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you just got to jump in, right? I didn't know how to write a book, but we figured it out, didn't we? So, it's sometimes you just got to be willing to do what others aren't willing to do. You got to be okay with the outcomes. That's something I think is really, really important for the listeners to this right now, is you got to be okay with the outcome. You got to set the tone and set what the expectations are, and then also what your limits of those expectations are. So, I'm willing to do X for Y, and beyond that, that's my limitation, right? I'm willing to go to that level. And then beyond that, for me, is like, just again, getting your hands dirty, potentially looking at what others are doing in the industry. I always like looking at my competitors. I think it's fun looking at their websites and studying them and seeing what I think is working and what's not working. And there's so many resources now available online that you can do, great things with, quite honestly, to do your research and to do your due diligence on competitors before getting into the space and knowing what others are doing and seeing if you think you can do it better. And if you think you can do it better and you've got some passion around it, I say jump in and go after it. So
If I may add as well to what just Adam mentioned, I think this is a great example of writing a book, because I faced that challenge as well. And then after I start writing, I experienced something that I never experienced before. It was unbelievable joy, unbelievable satisfaction to wake up each morning, to go to get your coffee, and to go, and especially like for me, I would go to special places that I feel like extra motivate me, extra inspire me, like to see the view. And I still value the time that I really spent on writing. And to me, that became a habit. Actually, it's a big time. I like to write, even if I have simple thought I want to write about, because once you start writing, you see that there is potential in you, actually, that the thoughts come out and you never knew they were actually there. However, what I want to talk about is where the goals and obviously the plan comes from, is the idea of jumping into unknown. Where does it come from? I'm looking at, for example, my offices. I could see some people, they more successful than the other. Then you think, well, maybe it's the area, one person in Ohio and the other person in California. But then I realized, no, it's not the area. It's because of who is the leader, because of the leadership style of the itself, of the leader by itself, is about how far one person could see. If you could see that I can do that, then you set up those goals for you, and then you set up a plan for you. But if you don't believe that is it possible, if you just don't believe, you're not going to jump in. Why? Because it's extra effort. Why would I do this if I don't believe in successful turnout? I don't want to look bad. I don't want to shame myself that is not going to be paid with reward. I don't want to do this just for the experience and everybody going to point out to me that he is a loser. So I really have to believe. So what I discover, though, the people who are very successful, and even if you talk to yourself, you actually had that envision. I'm sure for Adam, for example, let's talk about the Mission Matters, that Adam had to believe that Mission Matters someday it will be big. It's not going to be just heard in Beverly Hills, but it's going to be heard in Seattle, it's going to be heard in Ukraine, wherever, all over the world. One person could actually see, then he can invest, in my opinion, then he start writing the goals, and then he would start writing the plan according to what he sees or she sees.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, 100%. I love that. I love that. Another thing for, thinking back early on, Adam and Victor, for me personally, as I started my first business in 2008, 2007 into 2008, it was funding and identifying before I ever launched my business how I was going to do that and what resources that I either had or I could find available to me to get that business launched. And, for me back then, I tell the story to the entrepreneurs that I work with. I was a 20 something year old kid with not a whole lot of credit history or anything like that, but I did have a credit card. And I was trying to figure out how am I going to raise the funds to start this business. I thought I was only going to need about $15,000 to start it. Lo and behold, I figured out a little bit later on that I needed a whole lot more. But that being said, I actually reached out to my credit card companies at the time and just said, "Hey, my name's Adam. Here's my account number. Look at my performance with you guys, my payment history, et cetera. Are you guys willing to increase my credit limit to allow me to open up this business?" And lo and behold, they were willing to do it. I was able to use somebody else's money, which was great. I always tell people to try to use OPM, other people's money, as much as possible. And they gave me 0% interest for the first 12 months on that credit card.
Wow.
Which really allowed me to launch my business. I got $20,000. I only needed 15. I put the extra money into a savings account, high interest yield savings account, made some money off of their money, and then, was able to pay off that credit card within the first 12 months. So I never paid any interest on it. So don't underestimate the power of yourself when trying to find funding resources, because sometimes they're right in your own pocket, literally. Even though your wallet may be lighter than what you would like it to be, if you've got credit cards, if you've got other resources, you may be able to call on those resources and credit cards, et cetera, to see if they can increase your limits and expand your opportunity there.
Speaking to that, you obviously at that time your challenge is how can I finance that? For me, I remember at the beginning was a challenge even with the support of have the right staff to do a job. And I remember back then all we were able to do is just to secure small jobs. Our company, what we do, we sell event merchandise on site at the sporting events. So, for example, any soccer tournaments, any hockey tournaments, figure skating, or gymnastics, our company, we have a contract for their specific event. For example, that would be like Washington State Gymnastic Championships. So, we bid for the exclusive rights for the name and logo. And then on the day of actual event, our crew, our employees would come and set up a booth with a huge selection of products to choose from, that everything comes with this official event logo, which is in this case, Washington State Gymnastic Championships. And then those participants, their families, their friends, the spectators, they could come and purchase this different products with names of the participants on the back and stuff like that. So at the beginning, we were able only to secure the local events. And then it takes a lot for you to book like special, like a national level event or international level event. And when my partner, they heard me that that I'm calling to present my company to bid for the national event, which will require at that time at least 50 employees. It would require a lot of finance in order just to do this job, to have the right inventory to do this job. And and I remember, just because of the faith that I can do this, I had enough confidence in me that if I secure this job, I will have so much motivation that I knew I will find there's enough staff to support this. And that's how it was, where I was able to book in very significant event that basically took us on another level. Because as soon as you mention and the customers see that you have the experience and you did this job, this national event, all of a sudden everybody opens the door for you because they trust you. The level of expectation and who you are is very different. So on a local level and on a national level as well. And even though the resources were not there, but because, like you said first, because of the passion, as long as you have that passion, you will find the resource and the potential that's in you. It just opens up to the maximum level.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. You made me think there, Victor. The other thing I'll say this: you're not a business until you've got a client, right?
Right, that's right. That's right.
So, I'm thinking back and I'm saying to myself, okay, the first year was really difficult. Although I got that loan out, that credit card balance up and was out there, it took me a minute to actually get to the point of selling my service. And I'm in the healthcare industry. I've got 8 companies now that are all in the healthcare industry. We support doctors nationwide with their back office, and we train people on how to do the same thing, which is pretty cool. Again, it's a big passion of mine. But I was not a business really. I was really not a business for the first 8 months or so, 9 months, because I had no clients, right? And it was me. And so once I got a client, I got the confidence up, I was able to expand. And once I figured it out, as I tell everybody, I really figured it out, and we've been able to grow exponentially ever since. But you can be the entrepreneur that sits there and tries to figure everything out, or you can be the entrepreneur that goes out there and just does it. And sometimes you got to throw some stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Always with a plan. I think you should always do it with a plan. But personally, I'll say this: I see a lot of entrepreneurs that want to get a business started, that say that they're starting a business, that get a business started, quote unquote, get a business started. They never get it off the ground, and it's because of several things. Sometimes a lack of motivation, sometimes a lack of passion for that business, sometimes a lack of funding for that business. But a lot of times just because they can't get out of their own head, and they're not willing to, look past where they are today and realize that they are capable, they are, able, like you were, Victor, like Adam was in starting Mission Matters, to support the people that, you guys want to support the people that we want to support in healthcare. And because of that, quite honestly, their voice is never heard, right? Because they don't have any clients. They're just another number, I'll say, to the IRS with a tax ID number. And I'll say this too: another major lesson I learned early on, unfortunately the wrong way, is that when you start a business, you should really be working with a good local, if you're in the United States and listening to this, ideally local CPA firm or firm that can support you in identifying how to structure your business from a tax standpoint. Because when we got our business started our first business started in 2008, officially incorporated in 2008, we filed it incorrectly, and it ended up costing us tens of thousands of dollars over the course of the following couple of years in terms of taxes that we should not have had to pay, but we had to pay based on the structuring of our business. And so we learned that lesson, unfortunately, the hard way, spent the money, and then moving forward, now I allow experts to start the business. Anybody can start a business. It's fairly easy to start a business in any state, really, by going to the state registrar's website and registering yourself, and then going to IRS and getting an EIN number. But doing it properly and clicking the right buttons, or not doing it properly and clicking the wrong buttons, can literally be a matter of losing a whole lot of money in extra taxes or paying your fair share. So that's absolutely a key lesson that I learned. That's not really published anywhere, but it's important. It's something to take note of.
Hey guys, it's Jeff Norskog, Director of Mission Matters. Just been listening in and wanted to say how, some really amazing input. And I've had a few connectivity issues, but it's been a really enlightening conversation. And I think, building on what you guys just said, it's, the idea is super powerful, but it's about the execution. And sometimes that takes a team. So, the idea that we have, a concept for a business and that's a business is great, but that's kind of the kicking off point. And in my experience, it's been about building the right teams to execute on that idea. And a lot of times the idea person isn't the operator to build the company. It's rare that we find an idea and a founder and an operator all built into one. So I think, the value is in a lot of times teamwork. And then the other really crucial piece, and you guys may have touched on this prior to my arrival, is keeping focused, because too often, an idea has, a version 2, you try to tackle version 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, all the bells and whistles. And pretty soon, the idea has become too big to execute on, because, it's fun to bolt on fun stuff to your idea. Like, that's the future, and it's really exciting, and you don't have to pay for it or figure out how to do it in kind of the planning stage. But when you get down the field, that can be the challenge. And now you have you don't have enough resources. Your product development's overextended. You can't market all of the concepts, and you may have wasted your burn on stuff that wasn't necessary for like the first product to market. And I think Mission Matters is a great example of that. And if we look around kind of at the environment we're in right now, there are a lot of companies that are looking for fundraising and can't find it. And they're like a copycat of something else. So unless you are like version 1.0 in the SaaS space right now, there's some huge challenges. And if you built your company around fundraising every 12 to 18 months, or 6 to 12 months, or I think it was every 9 months in the last few years when fundraising was happening, and now it's doubled, you're dead in the water. So the idea of trying to build businesses that aren't built around crazy valuations and fundraising, building businesses that are self-sustaining, that can finance themselves. I know it's a novel idea in the world we live in, and it's not super sexy, but I think it's vital. Yeah. If you can, and focusing on that, like, how are we going to generate revenue and support ourselves? Because if we can figure out how to be self-supporting, then we can figure out how to scale. And then we're not dependent on VCs or, other outside sources, because when the going gets tough, the money dries up and you're left without a runway. So I think that's like the one thing I love about what Adam and Chirag have done is they've built this like self-sustaining business. So when the world's on fire and, inflation's through the roof and inflation and the rate of borrowings, increasing and the fundraising's drying up, like, we're in a good shape. We built a traditional business. And I think that's super important. And then the ability to figure out, how to scale with that same kind of thought process, right? All right, let's grow, but how are we going to grow and support our own growth so that we don't kind of fall over on top of ourselves, and you're seeing it all around, right? Like, it seems elemental. Like, we doubled, you see companies that have doubled their valuation and their workforce during the pandemic because they were pandemic-centric businesses, and now they have to lay off. Shopify laying off, 1,000 people. And surprised about it. It's like, I think you need to, be grounded in your estimation, have a long-term approach, and build it with the right people, and not surround yourself with a bunch of people who agree, because the Kool-Aid's really tasty. Especially when it's really tasty, especially when growth and the numbers and everyone's telling you how great your idea is. But those same people will absolutely disappear when your burn's too high and your revenue slows down and suddenly, your PE ratio is cut in half. And you're like, what do we do here? Those are the kind of things I really wish people put more thought process into when they're developing ideas, because the problem is that some really amazing ideas are going to die on the vine, and they didn't have to. So I think it's a great topic. It's nice to see some of my authors here. And, I think I especially love this one because it's in real time and we get to figure out how to how we can intertwine what we're talking about into our current businesses right now. So nice to see everyone. Sorry for my
sure.
in and out connectivity.
Yeah, no worries, Jeff. Great to see you. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jeff. This is Victor. I'm so glad to hear your input on this. I think what COVID did to many of us, and me included, is to really rethink about how you do business and about your cash flow. Because even it happened to me, I'd like to brag about how smart, how good we are, and how smart we are. But if I will be completely honest, and we were not prepared for times like this. We're not prepared for times when the business, for example, 30% down. I'm not even talking about more. Even if the business only 30% down, we're not prepared because we have so many offices. And unless the leadership behind is always remember to have the, like you said, to have the right focus and to grow the company, not just for the books, not just for impress the others and impress the growth level. Just like I remember there was times and kind of like almost competition between my offices, and they would just brag about, how much they grow. But the smarter way is how much have you saved? Can you go through the tunnel when some pandemic happen? Are you prepared? Or are you going to fire all of your key people, and then what are you going to do after that? Because it's, especially with us, it takes a long time to train somebody, to especially for the office job. So for us to lose even one person, that's a huge deal. So pandemic had opened our eyes for to rethink how we do business, and are we prepared for times like this? Because as we can see, there is so much uncertainty in this world. It just more and more people have to live with the notion of unknown, and unless we pretend like, oh yeah, everything is fine. I remember I had the general manager, JM, that who used to work for me. This guy was so good of pretending, and he made me to always believe that everything is just great. And then I remember once at the time when everything was discovered and it wasn't that great, and I was criticizing him so much, being so angry, is why did he lie to me? But then as I sit with myself and I said to myself, let's be honest, Victor, have you sensed that something wrong? Have you sensed there was a red flag and you should have acted at that time? And I admit, yeah, I sense it. But the reason I said I just like to accept the positive news, because I just like to have a positive news. And I thought to myself, well, maybe everything will just turn out to be okay. But I did not pay attention to those red flags, which I could have at that time, and that would not be as disaster that would discover later.
So true, so true. Yeah, I know. For us, it was the same thing. It's like whoever prepares, Victor, for a pandemic, right?
Right.
But then the pandemic happens, and as a business owner, as a business leader, you're forced legitimately over March 16th, I think, to figure it out, right? To say,
Right.
now what do we do? Do we lay off? What are we going to do? And, I'll tell you, for me, I've leaned a lot on outside consultants and freelancers now with, the abilities that we have through online workspaces like Upwork and just different freelancer websites that we use to find experts, to reach out and just, to our community, and just reach out for support to supplement, our knowledge, really, to supplement the knowledge that we have and get another person's ears. I loved what Jeff said. You don't always want the guys that are saying yes, the yes man.
That's right. That's right.
Because the yes man is not the guy that's going to help you grow necessarily. It's just the guy that's going to stroke your ego. So you want to think about that, obviously, as you format your team and put everything in place, and as difficult situations arise. So I always say, if you're going to get a business started, make sure you have a good team around you. If you don't have a good team around you, then make sure you put together a good team around you. So hopefully that helps.
100%. Jeff, Director of Mission Matters again. I think you touched on it. I think sometimes it's as simple as trusting your instincts. So I think what we often do when we're off and running and things are going great is we stop listening to our instincts, and our instincts will generally, I think lead us to a cautionary place where we're kind of level-headed. So I think that's super important. And then, building teams, surrounding ourselves with people who are smarter and, have more expertise and experience in areas where we don't. I think the challenge and kind of the drawback to some of the organizations I see is the hiring process. Nobody wants to hire somebody who's can do their job better, or who brings an expertise that maybe, isn't as strong as someone else. And I think the insecurity that we see from upper management sometimes is really a detriment to, how we build and launch these businesses. Because, we have to know that, the most successful teams are strong at every position. And I think that's what effective management is like figuring out how to put it together a dream team, and then being willing to listen to them. Because it's one thing to put together a really smart team and then not listen, but you have to be willing to listen. So good stuff.
Absolutely.
Hello? Can anyone hear me?
Welcome. Yes.
Hi, this is Lakeisha Mazur, Business Development Advisor for LegalHelpForBiz.com. And what I'd like to contribute is you need to be able to adapt to how your business can be marketed. Be aware of what technology and what business tools you need to have in place for your business, because it took me almost 55 minutes to figure out what Twitter Spaces is, how to use it to be on the panel. And you need to legally protect your business. So when you have your business entity, if you're speaking with a lawyer, they'll let you know so you don't have any of those tax issues.
I love that.
Yeah, if I could add to that, what Lakeisha just said is, for me, I had to learn in a bad way because, like, for example, in our business, we have the exclusive rights to the event name and logo. But sometimes, as we send our crews and they would sell, for example, which happened. So there is an organization, United States Track and Field Organization, that's one. But there is a competitor organization, AAU Track and Field. So our salesperson mistakenly basically goes to the event, and when customer requests, I'd like to have the USTF logo on the front, but on the sleeve, I would like to add the AAU Track and Field logo. Salesperson printed because mistakenly it was there. And then when they printed, I received a phone call from the attorney from USATF suing us for millions of dollars just because of that. And I thought, wow. And it went for months and months, almost a year. We were punished with not being able to do business with USATF organization for a whole year, and until our reputation was reestablished. And obviously we had to pay some fines. But yeah, if you always have to educate yourself, you cannot say, well, I just didn't know, because that's what I said. Sorry, I had no idea. It's a naive mistake. And the employee basically was not controlled by it. He just grabbed that from the office thinking he's doing a good job. And we just didn't know. You cannot say, well, I just didn't know. You have to educate yourself. You have to know in order to protect your company and everyone who is working. And especially about the taxes. One thing that I know you, Adam, spoke about the taxes and the price that you had to pay years later. For me, fortunately, I didn't have the temptation to do it myself. I just simply did not have temptation to do it myself. So therefore, we went from the beginning and we hire a professional CPA company, and we always have done that. So at least that area was always covered with experts. So because one thing I knew, that area to me, I just don't know. And I don't want to figure out, because no matter how good I am, I would still not going to be as expert as those people who only job they do is just work with taxes. So it's a lot of temptation to save money and to do it yourself. But I figured, no, it's not worth it.
I wish I thought the same way early on in my early 20s. I wish I thought the same way, man. I've learned over the years, it's better to outsource, like you guys were talking about before. I think several of you guys brought this up. It's just give it to somebody with better knowledge, especially on the CPA side and the legal side. It's just so much easier. It's just so much easier as we've grown, hiring an HR director and having an HR director on staff. It's so much easier for us as business owners to be able to say, you know what, that's an HR thing, go to HR.
Exactly.
With HR, terminating employees and making sure that you're doing it above all standards and all of that kind of stuff is great. And then also, I think to what Jeff was alluding to before is, when you've got challenges, then once you've grown your business to the point of having support around you in terms of employees, as you get challenges, now you've got opportunity of bringing those challenges to more than your set of ears or your set of eyes. And, you can take everybody else's input, and ultimately, the decision may fall on your shoulders, but at least get the input and be open to the input of those around you. And for me personally, I own a medical billing company today, and I was never a medical biller or a medical coder, right? But I hired the best. And as I tell people now, I don't really care where you're located. It doesn't matter where you're located. If you're the best marketing person and you're based in Singapore, that's okay. I'll figure it out. I'll hire the best. I'll figure out how to pay you. And because I want the best, I want nothing but the best for myself, for my employees, and ultimately for my clients. So,
right.
All right. Well, we're coming at the top of the hour. We normally try to keep these to about an hour. Is there any and we do these every Thursday. So I think first off, I appreciate everybody for showing up. I mean, the conversation's been awesome, and I've learned a lot. I know that there's just a lot going on, and I'm thinking about 50 more questions that I could ask, but I want to be aware of everybody's time, so I'll leave it on to the table too. Is there any last comments or anything else that anybody else wants to sign off with before I do the closing?
I think it's a great time to start a business.
Yeah, that's right.
In all seriousness, through the past couple of years through COVID, to what Victor was alluding to before, those that weren't prepared or weren't willing to become prepared in their business have faded away. And there's a lot of leaders that are still out there that are still around, but it's a great time to start a business. And that's what this country, America, is all about, is the freedom of independence. And it's great as long as you do it properly. And as long as you take advice from others and you've got some passion and willing to put the foundation in place to get there and the education in place to get there, I think it's a great time to start a business. So
Legally protected.
And legally, that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, on that note, I will just end by saying, hey, so first off, again, awesome having everybody on the call. Next week, same time, 4 p.m., we'll be having our next topic. And so everybody come back, join, and this will be distributed. So for all the panelists, we'll be distributing this on the website, so missionmatters.com, and then also our YouTube channel, Mission Matters Business, and all of the panelists will receive an email that will have all the content on it. So feel free to like, share, comment, and use as you will. Thank you, everyone, for showing up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you guys.